Hey everybody, welcome to The Mind Shift. It's a podcast where we talk about creating a life beyond limits. Today my special guest is Anthea Livingston. Anthea, firstly, thank you for being here. It's really great to see you again. It's been a while since we've seen each other in person, and to have you on the episode, I've been really looking forward to this one.
Thank you for having me.
Well, we got a lot to talk about. When we talk about breaking out of limits, and I think about how we met, I did a talk about how we have limiting thoughts and beliefs is how we first kind of connected. And I just remember you came up to me in that after that talk with that look in your eye. Okay, there's something here I want to talk about with you. And I was just thinking about before today, how long has it been? And you reminded me it's been 9 years since, 2016. So we've been having conversations for a while now. And I guess the first question on this episode, it's all about mind shifting. It's all about what we can accomplish when we change our minds or, at a very deep level and what we can deal with and what we can achieve. I guess when you heard that talk, if you can remember, that was a while ago, but what piqued your interest? What brought you to say, hey, I want to look into this? We didn't call it the mind shift then, but it's really what it was, right? What piqued your interest to say, I want to find out more about that? What started you in the process?
Well, personal growth is something that I've always done a lot of reading on. So the chance to explore some personal growth, but have the fact that I just moved back into a business, into the business world, probably was just perfect timing to take that personal growth and put it into a business sense. So, probably my biggest thing that I was facing in my own head then was a fear of success rather than a fear of failure. Just that, I don't think I can do this. So I think I could see in my own head I had some limiting beliefs that I would want to conquer. And when you talked about limiting beliefs and how that can affect you, I thought, need to find out more about that.
Great. And I remember it. There's people out there, and this is why we do the podcast, is there's people there, they have that glint in their eye, they know they want to do something, but they're stopped, and sometimes we don't even know what's stopping us, we just know that it is. And, this is why I appreciate so much, people like you coming on and sharing your stories. So, well, what's something you can tell them? So if you think about that journey, I remember what was going on at the time, and whatever you feel comfortable sharing about, what were the limits that were going on for you, or what would you share with people what's a teaching or something that we've applied that's made a difference for you, and what difference did it make?
I think it was quite a lot going on. If you remember, I was working for someone else and it was starting to fall apart, and it came to a crunch in 2017 when I left there and was ready to launch my own business, but feeling a bit fearful about that. So I think you and I did a few sessions, but then once I made that move, we ramped it up to monthly sessions. I made that commitment that I wanted to move forward. One of the main things I remember, and having listened to lots of different speakers where they talk about, you've got to set goals, you've got to have your 1 year goal and your 5 year goal and your 10 year goal and for business. But when I worked with you, it was in all spheres of your life, not just business. It was, what are your family goals? What are your spiritual goals? What are your mental goals? What are your physical goals? Being able to actually set goals in every sphere of my life, not just business, was something really new to me and quite exciting. And think, okay, so in our family goals, this is what I would want. And just being able to pinpoint exactly what my hopes and dreams were for the future was, quite exciting for me. Not just business. Like, business is really important. It was important that I set goals for the business, but actually the whole rounded part of being able to set goals in every sphere of my life was something that really excited me. And once we started, I remember it just flowed. It's just like all the stuff coming out. I want to achieve this. I want to travel. I want to be the chair of Home and Family Society. I was a board member at the time. Like, within 10 years, this is what I want. And it all I mean, it's only been 9 years now, and I'd achieved it all by 2023. So, in some ways, perhaps I didn't look far enough, but exciting that it gives me the chance to actually recreate again now.
Yeah. Well, it's interesting because that's precisely what you're doing now. Is that second round of I shared with you my first emblem in the first version of the business that we've got now. With it was this concentric circle. I always remember I talk about it quite a bit. You drop a pebble into a lake and a still lake, and it goes to concentric circles. And really, that's life. Is we're operating on this level, and a lot of times, we want some sort of change, but that change is within that same concentric circle, and we just keep going round and round that one, which is okay. It's just not the most fulfilling life that we can live, and it doesn't honor the potential that we've really got for what we can and experience. And we just had a catch up the other day, and just hearing about, I'm sure we're going to get to it, like what you're doing now, and it's just on a whole nother level. And that's what it's about, is experiencing it and then going, well, hey, I can be operating at an entirely different level, like a whole different universe really than the one I'm in, if you claim what you're capable of. But you're already off the bat just saying something so important, because I have been in this industry a long time, and it's like I'll go to an event, say a sales event, or a real estate event, or a mortgage advising or insurance advising event, and be like, okay, the person might be like, what's that goal? What's that 1 year goal? And it's all just one way. It's all one, focused. But we're complex beings. We have different areas that are important to us, right? We don't just have one. And what I've found, and I'd love for you to talk about it, because I know you've done a lot of work in this area, is, oftentimes when we're just focusing on that one, it's a motive, like you talked about, fearing that going for that success because you may not be able to do it, right? And most people with that, Anthea, which there's a lot, won't do it, right? They'll just stop themselves and go, well, I'm just not going to try it then, because I don't want to experience that. Where in reality, there's no such thing. There's just sometimes things work out and sometimes things don't work out. But if we don't go for it, that's the only way we're assured for it not to work out, right? And I think it's just important to get who we are. But when we're doing that, it's often because we think it's going to mean something about us, right? Like if I get that business success, I'm a good person. But if not, I'm not a good person. So I don't want to risk that. But in reality, we just have things we love. I love the way you've started this. And I remember just a conversation we've had this week. And, you just said, I wanted to have more time with my family. And, I decided just needed to do it. So you did. And you've taken a day off to be with them and to have a day for yourself, and everything is going fine. So it's actually quite important to know yourself, isn't it?
And family has always been a huge thing for me, and to build my business around our family needs was absolutely crucial for me. I'm reasonably driven, but also I'm more than just a business and a business person. That family is always at the heart of everything that I do, and so having that model where the whole part of my being could be included. It was good. But yes, I remember meeting a financial advisor about 6 years ago, and he said to me, I don't work Fridays, and because I don't want to. And I'm like, how do you do that?
How do you just decide that?
And he said, I just tell my clients I don't work Fridays, and they're not to call me on a Friday. And I'd thought about it, and then earlier this year I thought, I don't work Fridays. And I just blocked it out of my diary. It doesn't mean I don't do work on a Friday. I might sit at my desk and do a little bit of paperwork, or I might go see somebody. I might have a session with you, which is related to business. But it's my day, and I call the shots on it. And the moment I decided, I thought about it. I thought, why are you thinking about it? Just do it. And it's like, Friday's my day. And I can go see the grandbabies, or I can go catch up with a friend for coffee, or I can do whatever I like. I could stay in bed all day and read books if I wanted to.
I mean, how great to have that day, right?
Yeah.
And there's a lot of people that they really want that. Like, they think about it, but they don't do it. Like it's, and if we look carefully about that, it'll be the same reasons that when you were before that, getting into that business, the way that you have, because we'll talk about some of the extraordinary things you created there. before you got into that business, it was those things that stop you. And this is the kind of thing, like, we have a life that we want to live, but we don't do it, right? And we don't do it because, if I take Fridays off, then so and so might get upset, or what's somebody going to think about me, or I might lose my business or my job, or whatever the case might be. What you're bringing up for me, because there's so many different parts of the work, as you'll know, over 9 years of doing it, and different aspects. But one of the fundamental ones is just creating a life that you love and that's true to yourself, right? Like, that's a big part of what we do here, which is not just some words. Like, I've heard for 30 odd years that have been in this industry in some way or another, people say, do what you love, but it's kind of a cliche, but it really is true. Like, it takes a bit of effort. That's the thing that I'm not someone that tries to float people's boat and say everything's going to be easy. All you have to do is think about it and it'll come to you. I haven't found that, but I found that if you really commit to something, you commit to your true self, your true pathway, you're willing to do the work to get there, then it's extremely rewarding. And that's what I'm listening to you, is just how to live a life that you love is what and create that. And, that's what you're doing. So if I could take you back a bit, you said, that you had those fears about, going into it for yourself. I think you were working for someone else at the time. You had this thing, I want to do it, but you were feeling held back. How'd you break through? So for people that are listening, what can you tell them about? Because there'll be a lot of people in that scenario, and maybe not just in business, but they want to have a development in their relationship, or they want to take a move financially, or but they're like, oh, I might not be able to do it, so I'm not going to. What would you say? What did you do?
Do you remember, for me, it was just like dissolving stuff from that previous working relationship. I had all these assumptions in my head about what was happening in that business and what was being done to me, whereas they were just assumptions. And we talked through several times about what was happening, and I came to realise it was so good for me, because I came to realise I had all these things in my head that weren't even true. I was just making them up. And once I was able to actually dissolve those assumptions about what was being done to me, nothing was being done to me. That person was doing what was right for them and their business. And it didn't sit well with me, but it wasn't being done to me. And so that freed me up to actually stop thinking about what other people were thinking of me, and actually think about, what is it do I want? What do I want, going forward? And so doing that work on each sphere of my life and putting in that 10-year plan with those 1 year and 5 year goals, but in every sphere of my life, the moment that they went on paper, they started to happen in real life. Like they just happen. And then doing the work with you for those couple of years, and then doing the mastermind intense for a year, not only learning about myself, but learning about all the other people who are in mastermind, the same fears, the same worries. Everybody has these things in them that stops them from being who they are and reaching their true potential, and going, oh, okay, if they can do it, I can do it. And I think from that 2020 year, which was, a really interesting year for everybody. And we did a lot of our work online, thank goodness for Zoom. Everything just went like a freight train from that moment, from the moment that we all graduated, and I couldn't stop it, because what had been started was happening, and everything that was on my 10-year list was happening way faster. And I think working with you again now, looking back on that, I can see, I got so busy that I was working really long hours, and it was taking me away from family, and I was getting tired, and I was still having overseas trips, still doing the things that I wanted to do. But I think again now I do it differently again, like that, having the Friday off, I will shut my laptop at 5 o'clock. Even if I get really busy, those are my working hours. I'd be more protective of my own time now, and being able to actually, now we have 3 grandchildren and 2 more on the way, being able to say, yes, I can come today and help. That for me is the ultimate, being able to be that grandmother who is the person that can be called to come and help because
What you want to be there for.
oh, absolutely love it. It's like the best job I've ever had being a grandmother. Just absolutely love it. But then looking at recreating the business and building it up again, but more on my terms. So I think even though I learned a lot about myself, I realise there's still way more to learn about myself and how I'd structure this new part of the business. I mean, the business is still, I mean, I sold off the mortgage part of my business, but yeah, so I'm still been working, but at a much reduced rate, which has been amazing. But I'm ready to ramp things up a bit now, but I'm going to do it differently, more on my terms and to suit our family and, you know, and still get the same outcome, if not a better outcome.
Oh, you definitely get a better outcome like that. I mean, that was a whole podcast in about 5 minutes there. So there's a lot to go back and unpack through that, because what we do in this podcast is look for the gold that, you know, every person that engages in the mind shift conversations personalizes it and takes, you know, it's because that's what the work is, isn't it? It's not some blanket thing that everybody gets the same thing out of. It's like, what is it for you? Because really it's about helping to get to who you truly are and live your genuine life that's beyond limits. So there were some things there as you were saying, like mental note, right? To come back to, you know, that first one, if we just go right back to it, because there was just so much to unpack in that. Like, because, you know, if I'm watching this and I haven't had these kinds of conversations, which a lot of the people watching and listening to this won't, they don't, this is their introduction to, you know, to it. And there's some pretty serious concepts in there, right? Like you said, you know, these things that you saw were happening to you, right? That's simply the way we see it. It's the way that I look at the world. You know, this word to me, you did that to me, right? You're doing this to me. You're not being fair to me. And it's like, it was a big thing that you said. So I just wanted to go back and unpack. Hopefully I can remember all the gold nuggets there that you gave us and we can unpack each one. But it's that, you know, I have to be a little careful because it's pretty strong stuff, this work. But it's you know, we have a victim mentality is basically how we're brought up. It's things are happening to me. This happened to me and that happened to me. And, you know, what I've seen so many things in my work from, you know, and people get really angry. You know, I mean, I've had people that show up to the work, young ladies, or they're might be older now, but they, you know, even things like molestation when they were younger, or, you know, different things that happen. And I'm like, you know, I'll ask them to say, try to help them to get out of that mind construct, because that definitely, like everybody would say, well, sure, that did happen to them, right? And I'm said, yeah, it happened to them, but when, right? So I worked with a 35-year-old not too long ago. It happened to her when she was 5. But 30 years later, she's still bitter and resentful and angry, and everyone's supporting her in that. You should be, right? He's just a terrible guy, right? It was a family member. And I said, well, you know, you can go there, or you can realize that you have a life to live. And when's the last time it happened? You know, it was 30 years ago. And so do you want to live in that mind construct for the rest of your life? Because when I started to ask her about, you know, to help her to break free, you know what I'm talking about? She was getting really angry and resentful. Like, how dare you even remotely suggest that he was okay? And I'm like, I haven't said it was okay. I've said, what's the impact on you? And as long as you believe that it's not okay, or, you know, that it's a terrible thing and you need to hold on to it, you're never going to live your life. And she was an amazing young lady. She broke through, and she's now moving on to live her dreams and that, and do some great things, including having a really cool relationship in her life, because she was never able to open up to one because she was always so bitter. And I think about you, and it doesn't matter the context. It's like, you know, we put ourselves in these positions, but you said something really important, right? And I know to you, I love the way you said it, because it was just like second nature now, right? But if I'm out there, I'm going, wait a minute, like, didn't she or he or she do it to you, right? And well, no, they were just behaving in the way that they thought was the best with the mind state that they had at that moment of time. What did it have to do with you? And it's like, you know, you drop those 2 words. I often say the most dangerous words in our language, these 2 little words, to me, right? They did that to me. And once we get to me, it creates a whole persona that blocks us. And what you're telling us today is, and thanks for sharing your stories, that blocks you from living your dream. Yeah. Because as long as you're locked in that, we can't move forward, right? And so, yeah, I'd love to can we go deeper a bit in each one of those? So, so you investigated that, and just talk a little bit more, because what I believe I heard you say was, you realized that this person was just doing what they were doing
Yeah.
Okay, you didn't need to stay there for it,
No.
but it wasn't being done to you. So what was that like, and what impact did that have?
Oh, it was just freeing to actually do that work and actually, to step out of that victim. She wasn't doing anything to me. She was literally protecting her business. What she saw was a threat. And it was just her behaviour based on her upbringing and her way she saw the world. It wasn't anything to do with me, and it probably could have happened with other people. It wasn't necessarily me, and so being able to actually step away from that and meet up with her after that and just talk about things and was quite good. I mean, I didn't see her ongoing, but occasionally I'd bump into her at industry events, and it was actually easy. Whereas I thought, I dreaded, actually, the possibility of running into her. Yeah. I got to tell my story in New Zealand Advisor magazine, or the Mortgage Mag, and I actually thanked her for giving me the opportunity. Yeah. For being able to go back into finance. I started in a bank when I left school. Lending and buying houses was always something that was really important to me. I made all my friends open home ownership accounts and ultimately helped buy houses. And I got the chance to go back into that to help her with her business, and then ultimately start my own business. And I thanked her for that opportunity, publicly.
That's so powerful. Because whenever we can move something to thank you, like as long as we're, there's a saying out there, resistance, causes, what you're resisting causes your own, causes it to happen. What you resist persists, basically, is the way it goes. And I found it to be true. Like, as long as we get stuck in that mind state, then we don't break free from it. And I remember you, like you powerfully got past that. You shifted it around because it was debilitating for you from memory.
I just couldn't stop crying.
Yeah, it was really, not, and I remember when you got it, I just remember your face changed and you went, oh, and you moved to that thank you. And like all of a sudden you saw the whole purpose of that part of your life.
Yeah.
And this is huge, Anthea, because I've worked with people that are 60, 70, 80 years old that never did that with part of their life, and they got stuck there their entire life. They never got past it. And those are the things, like, as I know, because I've worked with you, and I hope it comes out in this conversation, just how far you've come, because you've done amazing things and are doing more in all areas, but in your work, because we're talking about this area, particularly, you just flew past, like it was done. You put the closed door. Thank you becomes, hey, okay, that was actually something that's helping me, not in the way. And it's two different lives, isn't it?
Yes.
Whole different lives.
Well, even earlier this year, I got stuck on something that I thought had been done to me. And it's interesting that you can regress into that. But 15-minute conversation with you, bang, nothing's been done to me. That person is behaving in that way because of who they are. It's nothing to do with me.
No, we're conditioned.
And it was just like, oh, okay, that's gone now. It was so fascinating. And as you said to me, obviously it was something I still needed to learn from that. And so being more mindful about that, and when someone says, oh, such and such said that to me, and I'm like, did they say that to you? Or
did you just think that?
Yeah, yeah, in my head, I'm like,
did
maybe that's the way you interpreted it, but yeah.
Well, they're patterns, right, Anthea? So, I'm glad you brought this up, because some people think, oh, I do this once and I'll never have another time of that happening. And that's not the way it works. Like, if you think about, we're conditioned from basically birth, just as soon as we have a consciousness of mind, we're taught to do that very thing. People did this to me. Like, we watch it. We watch it, and our parents do it, and our friends do it. We're all just blaming each other for the things that happen. And we live in this world, and we get taught this world of everything happens to me. Like, people say, oh, it's a tough world we live in, and you just have to survive. And so, but that's just a mind construct, right? The person that in the last podcast that we did said something like, because he had some real challenges happen to him, and he said, well, challenges happen, but life is fantastic. And it's like, well, what do you do with those challenges, right? And I think it's just so important, because people get stuck, don't they? Like, if we just look in the world, people get stuck in those things, and it's all because we learned it from the get-go. but all of a sudden you go, well, let me just look at this differently. Is that person really doing something to me, or are they just being them? And if I just see that they're being them and it's not got anything to do with me, we're free to then go, okay, well, what do I do about that? I'm not going to get angry and resentful and waste my time. I'm going to take a look at it and go, how's this serving me? But I think that's huge, like to publicly come out, because, you've stated here, and this is great. I appreciate it, because it's powerful for people to hear. You couldn't talk about it and not be in tears, and then you come out and say, honestly, genuinely, because I know you're a genuine person, thank you for that part that you played in my life, and it's done for you, isn't it? Yes. Like that part.
I mean, even if I look back, my first marriage ended because of addiction, and actually because of that addiction, I met the two best friends I could have ever had in my whole life. We ended up at a gambling support group for families, and that was 30, how old are the girls? 30. It was 29 years ago, and these two people are just the best friends I could ever have. And so part of me thinks, oh, thank you for having an addiction, for bringing these people into my life and then sending my life off on a different course from there. And I think, it's quite an interesting. I mean, at the time I thought, why has this happened to me? I even, to God, like, I've been a good Christian, I teach Sunday school. Why is this happening to me?
Yeah. Which is how we think, right?
Yeah.
Why is this happening to me? Why are you doing it? Yes. Because I see your alternative, though, is to be angry with your ex, bitter, resentful, which many people are, and they'll carry that forward. And what they don't realize is some people will come because they don't know what they don't know when we first meet. And they'll say, I don't know why I can't have a relationship, right? I don't know why every relationship I get into, I repeat the past, and it's because you haven't addressed, it's not what happened, you just haven't addressed what did you project onto that person, right? They were just struggling. You can see now your ex was just struggling with something in his own mind state, that he needed something to forget his problems, and that's what addiction is, right? And you get past that, you go, thank you. I mean, some people can be listening and go, well, how do you say thank you for that? But if you don't, what's the option? What's the alternative? Get stuck. Absolutely. And so, it's brilliant. So, right, love to hear now. Thank you for sharing that. And so you did get past that. You said something interesting. So you talked about the mastermind, which it's a group of like really amazing people like yourself that are engaged in the mind shift work, and which is essentially doing that together and sharing in the journey together. And, it was an interesting time to go through when you think about the challenges. Thank you for reminding me of the year, because I asked you what year, because I do it. I've been doing it every year until recently. And you said 2020. I was like, oh yeah, we went through that whole thing, lockdown and everything together. And, I think this is important to talk about. Some people feel uncomfortable with this, but I don't believe in acting like things are bad when people have a tough time. I don't believe in acting like things are bad for me, because I don't think that helps them. I don't think, I'll get over there with you. I can understand where you're at and be there and have a listening ear, but I don't think it's doing anyone any favors to act like things are going right for me. But I look at that group during that time and how everyone thrived, right? Like we were all locked in our homes, but the conversations we were having, people weren't letting it get on top of them. We were doing inquiring into the stuff that was coming up that you were talking about, and everyone, I just think about that group that year and how everyone thrived and is still thriving, that we have ups and downs, like you say, things come back and we need to deal with them. But, this is important stuff. And I think if you can say a little bit more, it was a big program with a lot of stuff in it, but if you can think about something in there, because your business actually, I think we were speaking just this week and you said, well, my business went really great. It was booming during that time. Yes. So what were you doing different, right? There's a lot of people coming and saying, oh, it's, everything is over and things are hard. And, what was your mindset, or what did you do differently during that time?
I think I had a moment, because as a mortgage advisor at the time, the banks wouldn't let us work with them. We couldn't put applications in. So I focused on just pastoral with my clients, just making sure they're okay. Are you getting enough money to pay your mortgage? Do you need me to look at doing a hardship application for you? But I feel like that time at home was almost like a gift, for our family, but also having that time, that extra time, where I could actually rather than just constantly working the next person, getting the next mortgage done, settling that house, blah, blah, blah. It was a time to actually take a breath and connect back with the clients, but also with Mastermind, having that extra time to be able to put the work in. I feel like it was almost a gift for us, having that time slowed down, because we never in the world do we actually just stop. We don't. And I think, for our family, having that extra time together, cooking together, for clients, just being able to just ring them, are you okay? If there's anything you need, just call me. I never had the time to do that. So just, and then bringing the Mastermind work in. I think for me, Mastermind was just seeing everyone else's breakthroughs, like when whether we were online. And I think too, also the fact that we were all separated, actually having that connection, that we could still get together, was really valuable for all of us. Just be able to bounce things off. I'm feeling worried about my business because I can't, see clients or whatever. And what are you doing? What are your strategies? And so we were all brainstorming what can we do?
Key, right? Because I think this is so important. So I'm chomping at the bit to say this. Like, what we did during that time was we put the focus on moving forward, right? That was the key thing. It's like when those times happen, I know a lot of people that were just like, oh, this is terrible. And they put the focus on how terrible it was. But what we did was we got a group of very, switched on people together to say, let's keep the focus. What you're bringing up for me now that I'm quite excited by, you can see, is just the power of focus and what happens if you're able to continue to focus on what you want to create, not what's happening to you. It's just so important. And I remember what you all did. When you said you're worried about your business, we again said, well, what are you worried about? Can you absolutely know that that's going to happen that way? And then if not, what could you actually do? How can you do it? And that's when you came up with, let me just contact people and connect with my own community. It's quite a powerful thing, because focus really is and I thank you for bringing this up. It's when things happen, big things are happening in my world at the moment with floods and things where I live, and it's like, well, I can focus on that and get really down, or I could say, okay, well, what do I want to create, and how do we work this in and make it part of the journey to where I can, and I've done some of the work. I was talking with you about it to see how it's actually helping me, and that's a big shift for people, because I think there's a lot of people out there going, how does this tragic stuff, how does a gambler in the family help me? How does but it does when you actually turn it around and you put the power of focus on it. So speaking of that, tell us about so what happened in the business? I remember talking with you at the time. So you got to this place, you started it, you're a dynamo, right?
Well, yeah, so I launched at 1st of November 2017, and so slightly from nothing. That virtually started with one client who was a friend of my daughter's who wanted to buy a house, and I'm like, oh, I've got a client, I'm so excited, like, yay, one client. So word of mouth as I started to pick up more clients. So it was gradually building 2018, 2019, and then 2020. And I don't know, I presume it's the work I did in Mastermind, just thinking, well, I can start to scale it up. I took on an amazing admin person, Helen, who freed me up from doing the dreaded paperwork, which I didn't like. And she was just a superstar at it. She just loved making everything tidy, and everything that I didn't like doing, she loved. From there, my business it just took off, and I don't even know how. It's just that the work that we put in, and those gradual steps, then suddenly it was like a freight train that I couldn't stop. And part of my 10-year goal was to bring on advisors, which I did, and I had some who came and left, but taught me stuff along the way, and then got to the point where some of the advisors that I had in my team were just superstars and excelling even what I was doing, which I loved, because for me, it wasn't about them settling more mortgages than me. It was them, like, I had mentored them to the point where they were actually excelling, and I had put in place a succession plan with one of them, which came to fruition way earlier but perfect timing for me. And she's still a superstar and running my baby. When she and her partner took over the business, she said, "We promise we'll look after your baby."
I mean, that's saying something, right?
know.
When somebody buys a business, takes it over, and to say that, that's respect.
And she's
seeing
still
what you've done.
she's still just doing an amazing job, and we still work hand in hand between the two businesses. But I don't know what happened. I just did the work.
Well, I mean,
it's
bringing
not
something
it's
up,
not
like,
any one thing. I just did the work, and then suddenly I couldn't stop it.
well, the work brings clarity. This is something I don't know that we've had a chance to talk about on the podcast. So thank you for the opportunity. This world is magic that we live in. We when we're able to have a mind shift and change to seeing the world for what it really is. Like, again, without any fault of anyone's, we're just taught that this world is hard and you got to make your way through it and, all of this, but it's way more than that. And through what I'm listening to you and what it's reminding me of is through the power of clarity, you're staying clear, you're staying focused, clear of who you genuinely are. Like I've heard in this today, you got clear about who you were and what you really wanted, and truly clear, right? And you got what was in the way, this blockage that you had, and you're just staying clear. I have seen over a long period of time now, decades now, that if we maintain that clarity, we understand that this world is magic. It gives you what you need to achieve what you want if you're just clear with it, right? If you just say, this is what I want. But first we have to be clear in ourselves. And then if we're clear with the world, it just starts opening doors. And I love the way you've said it, because hundreds of thousands of people come and say, I don't know how that happened. I just, I did it. And I was like, well, okay, something's going on. And when I look at it, it's the commonality is you have the courage, you do the work, as you said, you do the work, and the work is clearing, when you talk about the work, is clearing yourself out. It's getting past the limiting beliefs that are happening. It's getting clear about who you are in a genuine way. And it's putting your focus on that and just maintaining that. And from there, you just find you're on a different plane. So, well, speaking of that, because we'll come to today now, we just caught up. So there was a period of time we didn't catch up for a wee while. You were off flying and doing what you were doing. And then you said something had happened and you contacted again. And it was great to hear from you again. You had that little hiccup or whatever. And so you said, I think it was 30 minutes. So the tears turned to
it was only
laughter.
15. It was literally a preliminary call to having a session. And within 2 minutes, it had unblocked. And I'm just sitting in the car crying, going, oh, yes, okay.
Right.
Yeah, I had put my assumptions onto that person. It wasn't actually anything to do with me.
I mean, if you hadn't done that, it could have just lasted for years or decades or, the rest of your life. So, wonderful you had the courage. And then since then, though, what I love about what we're doing now and what you're bringing up is you just shared with me yesterday, if you're happy to, I don't know if it's too early,
but absolutely.
So we've heard from hey, I had one client to you got advisors, you built a business, you've sold a business. You said something yesterday that's, to me, this just represents, okay, this is how it works. You stay clear, you go to a new level. This is why it's called, creating a life beyond limits. It's beyond any limits we can see at the moment. How do we get to the next level? Because I think in the beginning, you probably never would have seen what you were saying now. No. And I remember the definitive way you said yesterday. So do you want to share with us, just so we can understand the changes in mindset and where are you at now with your thinking and going forward?
Well, I think the work that we've done over the last couple of months, just for me, being able to basically go back down to the beginnings of what is it that actually I want? What is the outcome? So looking, because when we did that work on the 10-year plan, I think the last couple of times we've met up, it's like, what do I actually want? What do I want life to look like in 10 years? And I'm really clear about that. Okay, so what do I need to do to get there? And I think I've taken common denominators out of every job that I've done, and the thing that I've loved the most is the development of people in my business or people that I worked with, and actually helping people to reach their full potential. And so for me, the next step is, how can I actually do that more? How can I actually help people who want to be advisors become the best advisors that they can be? So structuring my business going forward, that I'm going to be more available to be able to help people reach their dreams. Yeah. Because there's something really powerful about seeing someone they come in, they're nervous, they don't know what they're doing, or they might know a little bit about what they're doing, but just having that worry, is it going to all work out? And actually just helping them put one foot in front of the other. These are the steps. This is what you need to know. This is what I did. And then seeing them become successful is such a joy.
So instead of one superpower, Anthea, you're helping many of, you, and how many more people can that serve and help, and how much bigger does your vision get? So we can always edit this out, but if it's too early, but I just remember you saying at the beginning of the conversation, you said, I want to move more into a managerial role. And then by the end of the conversation, you were like, I'm going to be a manager, and I'm going to help other people. You were just like super clear. That's the next level, is helping all these other people to flourish like you have. So, that vision just got so much bigger, and that's the next journey, right? It's not finished. It's not like, hey, you created this amazing business, from feeling blocked to even starting it. It's like, that's the phase one. Now, what's the next adventure to have in life?
Yeah, because when you are an advisor in your own business and you're actually doing the work, there's only so much time to be able to actually do the work on the business. And I actually really enjoy working on the business. And so it's creating those pathways that I work less in the business and more on the business, to a point where I will just be working on the business and I'll be helping everybody else to actually grow their businesses under my business. Because that was, for me, when I started out on my own, was I wanted to be able to offer opportunities to people where they could grow their business under mine and be successful. And in many cases more successful than me, which is fantastic.
And that's what gives you fulfillment, at the end of the day. And when I hear you saying work on the business, it's like it's the next step of working on your vision, right? Your whole overall, because I've known you for a while and you've kept that, right? You've done amazing things outside of the business. You've been amazing in it, but you've also been an amazing wife and mother and grandmother, and you've helped a community. I know you brought me into one of your projects to do some help at one point, and so it's the business, but you're living that fulfilling life.
Oh, it's amazing. It's more incredible than I ever thought it could be. And there's something really exciting about putting a 10-year plan in place and achieving it in 8 years. Well, less than that, because, I started working with you in 2016, but I didn't put that plan in place till 2017. So really it was only 6 years. Yeah.
And that's the power you've got. And, what I love to see is now, okay, I've done that. Now what's my next? Right, what's my next one? And yes. You've got your next 10 year, your next big vision. So, well, Anthea, there's just been so much we're going to unpack in this. There's a lot to get from it. And so before we finish, though, I always ask one question as a full circle. If there's one thing, because there's people out there watching this podcast or listening to this podcast that they're interested in creating that life beyond their limits, but this is the experience that they're having with it. And what's one thing you would say to them that they want to break through a limit, they want to create their life, they want to have a mind shift? What's the one thing that you would say to them that they could do to go forward and create a life shift for themselves?
Well, apart from work with you, that would be that would be my. I think if someone's stuck and they don't know what to do, then they need to get some outside help. Okay. They need to read a book or listen to a podcast or work with someone like you, Shredder, who can help them. Because I think we get stuck and then we start going around in circles, and sometimes it's hard to break past that. Even after all the work that you and I have done earlier this year, as you know, I got a little stuck. And I'm just like, in my head, I'm ruminating and it's just going round and round. And I know how to do the work, but I think I got myself to a point where I've forgotten that. Reach out to someone, or even just say it out loud, to someone, what you're thinking. And then as you hear yourself saying it, you go, oh, well, actually, that's...
Yeah, now you're at that stage where you can hear what you're saying.
Yeah, but I think, keep exploring. As I said to you yesterday, one of my new favourite things to do when I drive around town to see clients is I listen to a podcast. Yeah. And sometimes it's a business podcast, sometimes it's a frivolous Frugal Friends podcast. Sometimes it's Mary Trump on what's happening in America. And sometimes I think, oh, I don't want to listen to that because it's too much to unpack there. So I waver between different, sometimes it's a podcast about music. But in each podcast, sometimes I'll find a little gem. Like people you need to step outside of what you're doing and do something a little bit different.
That's a boom moment right there. Yeah, I think about my own journey, and if you ask me what made the difference from the homelessness and the drug addiction, it's like it's the people that cared enough, teachers, for lack of a better word, that's who did it, and people who taught me something different. Those teachers sometimes were books, and we didn't have podcasts in those days, but it was books and tapes and those sorts of things that, yeah, I'd love that. Just keep an open mind, always go forward, step out of what you find comfortable and keep going. Well, that's just an awesome way to complete that. Anthea, I always go back through these and do a bit of a recap, and I know there's going to be a lot in this one to unpack, and I know people have got a lot out of it. So thank you very much for coming here and sharing your story and just those nuggets of what we don't hear every day that people can apply and change their lives. So I really want to thank you for being here.
Well, thank you for being a huge part of that story. Meeting you was an amazing part of my life, and I thank you for all that you've done for me.
Well, it's my pleasure. My pleasure. Well, thank you again. And in a great way. No, thank you. It means a lot. And it is, this is real life, and it means a lot for me that you're here. And, this is why we do this, is because life doesn't have to be stuck, and it can be something special. Yeah. So thanks again. And thank you for watching this episode of The Mind Shift. We'll be bringing more your way, and we'll see you again soon on the next episode. Thanks for watching.